Colony's destruction awakens Terra's sleeping giants, an HFY sci-fi story. The stars twinkled coldly above Terra, a planet that had long been forgotten by the rest of the galaxy. Once a hub of ancient civilizations and interstellar trade, the Earth had now become a quiet, isolated world, its people scattered across the stars, seeking to rebuild amidst the ruins of their lost empire. But deep beneath the surface, the true power of the Earth still slumbered, waiting to be awakened. For centuries, humanity had sought to push forward into the stars, but now, it seemed that the cosmos would not let them forget their past. A new colony, founded on the distant moon of Titan, was in danger of collapse. Its resources were running out, its settlers were dying, and its hope was fading. The leaders of the colony knew that unless they found a way to restore their dwindling supplies, they would not survive another cycle. It was in this moment of desperation that they made a fateful decision. A group of scientists and explorers, desperate for answers, turned their eyes toward Terra. They had long heard stories of the old world, of the ancient technology and unimaginable powers that had once been harnessed by humanity's forebears. The old legends spoke of dormant forces, of creatures that slept beneath the earth, waiting for the right moment to awaken. These sleeping giants, as they were called, had once been the Earth's guardians, wielding powers that defied comprehension. But those were just stories, right? Or so they thought. The colony's leaders sent a transmission to the remnants of Earth, requesting assistance from any surviving factions or organizations. They had little hope of receiving a reply, but they were desperate. To their surprise, they received a response, not from any government or military force, but from something far older. A voice crackled through their communications systems, ancient and resonant. "You have awoken us." The message was simple, but it struck fear and awe into the hearts of the colony's leaders. The voice was not human, but it carried a strange, unmistakable power. It was as if something ancient had stirred beneath the earth, something far more than just human. At first, the colony's leaders dismissed it as a glitch in the system, but then, strange phenomena began to occur. The ground trembled. The atmosphere itself seemed to hum with an unknown energy. A series of seismic shifts rippled across the surface of Titan, and the colony's tech began to malfunction. Something was happening, something impossible. Desperation turned to dread as massive seismic events shook Titan's surface. The moon's fragile crust began to crack. From deep within its core, the echoes of Terra's ancient power reverberated, rousing something far older than humanity itself. It had been millennia since anyone had dared to disturb the giants of Earth. But the humans of Titan had awakened them. The sleeping giants were not creatures of flesh and bone, they were machines, colossal constructs from an age long past, their power still intact after centuries of dormancy. The giants rose from their ancient resting places, scattered across Terra's continents, massive titans of steel and stone. Their forms were a blend of biological and mechanical, with enormous limbs and eyes that burned with a forgotten, arcane energy. They had been built to defend Terra against any threat, but now they had lain silent for far too long. Until now. And now, they moved again. The destruction on Titan escalated as massive tremors shattered the moon's surface, causing massive sinkholes and volcanic eruptions. The colony's leaders had only one choice. They needed to abandon their world before it was too late. But as the last remaining ships scrambled to evacuate, one of the colony's most daring explorers made a bold decision. Captain Elena Vasquez was a veteran of countless space missions, and she had long suspected that Terra's sleeping giants were more than just myth. She led a group of brave volunteers on a perilous journey to Earth, hoping to make contact with the giants before it was too late. As they descended into the atmosphere of the long-lost planet, they saw the devastation. Cities lay in ruins. Nature had long since reclaimed much of what humanity had built. But in the distance, towering figures loomed over the horizon, massive, mechanical titans who walked like gods, their eyes scanning the skies for any signs of danger. For the first time in centuries, humanity's greatest defense was finally awake. "Do you understand now?" The voice from the past spoke again. It was the voice of the Earth itself, speaking through the giants, as though the planet itself had been waiting for the right moment to reclaim its power. "You are not alone, human. You are never alone." Captain Vasquez stood in awe as one of the giants turned its massive head toward her and her crew. It raised its arm, a huge, glowing weapon brimming with ancient energy. "We have waited," it spoke, its voice deep and rumbling. "Now, we rise to protect you." The giant's weapon flared with brilliant light, and a powerful surge of energy shot into the atmosphere, cutting through the approaching threats above. The skies above Terra burned with the brilliance of the giant's awakening. The battle for the colony was not yet won, but for the first time in generations, humanity had the chance to rebuild. The giants had returned to defend the human race, not just as protectors, but as the reminder that Terra's true strength could never be erased, no matter how much time passed. The destruction of the colony had been the catalyst, the spark that awoke Terra's sleeping giants. Now, humanity had the power to rise again, together, with the ancient protectors of Earth at their side. And the galaxy would learn, once more, that no force could stand against the will of humanity and the ancient power of their home world. The giants had awoken, and so had humanity's destiny. Colony's destruction awakens Terra's sleeping giants, Part 2. The evacuation was in full swing, but the chaos on Titan was far from over. As the ships made their final sweeps across the moon's surface, the tremors intensified, shaking the very core of the colony. It was clear, Titan wasn't just dying, it was being torn apart, its fate sealed by the ancient power Terra had unleashed. Captain Elena Vasquez and her crew, aboard the last remaining shuttle, made their way to Earth's orbit, pushing through the ionized atmosphere left in the wake of the ancient giant's rise. They had barely escaped with their lives, but the real question now was whether Terra could be a sanctuary, or if the dangers of the past would follow them across the stars. When they entered Earth's atmosphere, Elena's heart beat faster. For the first time in decades, the once-forgotten world seemed alive, alive with power, alive with purpose. The skies were crackling with energy, and from the window, the crew watched as giant figures moved across the land, their forms silhouetted against the rising sun. "We're here," Elena whispered, as the shuttle descended toward a vast expanse of green, the ruins of an ancient city far below. The giant figures were unmistakable, towering and formidable, a mixture of advanced technology and bioengineering, their limbs moving with purpose. "Do you think they'll accept us?" one of the crew members asked, his voice laced with uncertainty. "They're not human. They were built to protect humanity," Elena replied. "We've just got to convince them that we're worthy of that protection." They landed near a massive forest clearing, a short distance from the epicenter of the awakening. It was here that the largest of the giants, a towering behemoth of gleaming alloy and living stone, stood motionless, watching over the horizon. As they stepped off the shuttle, the crew felt the weight of its gaze, a sentient, ancient presence that could not be ignored. Elena approached cautiously, her heart pounding in her chest. The other crew members stayed behind, unsure of what was about to unfold. She had no plan, no idea if the giants would even acknowledge her as a human, but she knew that the fate of her people rested on this moment. The giant's massive eyes, glowing with an otherworldly light, tracked her every movement. For what seemed like an eternity, it remained silent, its massive form looming over her. Then, in a voice deep and resonant, it spoke. "Why have you returned, human?" The ground beneath her feet vibrated slightly with the force of its voice. Elena swallowed hard. "We're survivors from Titan. Our colony was destroyed. We need help." The giant's gaze never wavered, as if contemplating the weight of her words. "Titan is no more," it said. "You have awakened us. We have long waited for this moment." A strange stillness hung in the air, broken only by the distant rumblings of the moon's collapse. Elena continued, her voice steady despite the uncertainty. "Please, we've lost everything. We need to rebuild, but we can't do it alone. We need you. The technology you hold, the power you possess, we need it to survive." For a long moment, the giant remained silent, its massive frame towering like an immovable mountain. Then, without warning, it knelt down, its great hand lowering to the ground beside Elena. The very earth seemed to tremble in response to its motion. "You speak of survival," it said, "but survival is not enough. Humanity must earn its place in the universe. You have been tested, you have failed before, but perhaps, this time, you will succeed." The ground trembled again, this time more violently, as other giants began to emerge from the shadows. They were not all the same. Some were shaped like towering figures of pure machine, while others seemed to blend the organic with the mechanical in a seamless fusion. Together, they stood as a wall between Elena and the unknown. "What must we do?" she asked, her voice unwavering. The weight of this moment, the weight of history itself, pressed heavily on her shoulders. The giant's voice rumbled once more, carrying with it the weight of millennia. "You must prove your worth. You must show us that you are not the same as those who came before you, those who destroyed your home, those who lost their way. If you wish to survive, you must unite. If you wish to reclaim the stars, you must first master the earth beneath your feet." Elena nodded, understanding the gravity of the challenge before them. Humanity had been fractured for so long, scattered across the stars, that it had lost the unity that once defined them. To survive, they needed to rediscover that unity, not just among themselves, but with the planet that had been their cradle. "We will unite," she said. "We will fight, we will rebuild, and we will honor the legacy of Terra, of what once was, and what could still be." The giant's glowing eyes softened, and for a brief moment, there was something resembling approval in its ancient gaze. Then, it said, "You will have our aid." Back in the depths of Terra's ancient cities, in long-forgotten labs and sanctuaries, humanity's forgotten technology began to stir. Long-dormant systems came online, and vast networks of knowledge, stored for eons, began to flow once more. The sleeping giants moved with purpose, responding to humanity's call. Elena and her crew weren't alone anymore. They were no longer the scattered remnants of a dying species. They were humanity, reunited, standing shoulder to shoulder with the ancient protectors of Earth. And as the giants awakened, so did humanity's future. The fight for survival was far from over, but humanity was no longer facing it alone. The sleeping giants of Terra had risen, and with their power, Earth's lost children would rise again. The universe would tremble before the force of their united will. The giants had awoken, humanity had returned. And together, they would reclaim their place among the stars. Colony's Destruction Awakens Terra's Sleeping Giants, Part 3. The days following the awakening were filled with both awe and uncertainty, as the crew of the Titan evacuee ship established a temporary base camp in the shadow of the ancient giants. The full scale of the planet's resurrection began to take shape. Humanity's reawakening was not just a return to Earth, it was the rekindling of a power long thought to be lost to time. Elena and her team had barely begun to understand the complexity of the situation when they were approached by the leaders of the ancient guardians. The giants, once mere legends, now acted as emissaries of a forgotten Earth, ready to offer their protection and knowledge to those who had returned. But they made it clear, humanity's survival depended on more than just their technology. It would require humanity to rise to their true potential. "We have restored the core systems," the giant known as Terra said, its immense form casting a shadow over the gathering. "The Earth speaks once more. The elements are in balance. But the path to reclaim your place in the stars requires more than technology. It demands unity." Elena nodded, the weight of the task before them pressing heavily upon her. "We're ready," she said, though the uncertainty in her heart was still palpable. "Tell us what we need to do." Terra's voice reverberated like the tremor of a deep, buried bell. "The scattered colonies and fragmented remnants of Earth are divided. They do not see the need to unite under a single banner. There is discord among your people. To survive, you must first restore the trust that has been lost. You must convince them that the past is not something to fear, but something to build upon." The message was clear. The power of the giants alone was not enough. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its adaptability, its ability to unite and overcome adversity. But after centuries of separation and isolation, they had lost that unity. They had become fractured, with factions unwilling to see the larger picture. And now, even with the giants at their side, they were at risk of failing to overcome their own divisions. As days turned into weeks, Elena led diplomatic missions to the far-flung colonies of humanity scattered across the solar system. Some of these colonies had once been allies of Terra. Others were distant worlds that had developed their own cultures and ideologies over the centuries. Some had heard rumors of Earth's awakening, but many had dismissed it as fantasy. Others were far more skeptical, fearing that the rise of Terra's ancient guardians meant the return of a power that could threaten their newfound independence. "We don't want Earth's old ways," one colony leader, a former scientist named Dr. Ilara Drennan, said when Elena met with her on a distant mining colony on Mars. The Earth was the cradle of humanity. But that doesn't mean it was perfect. We fought wars. We destroyed our planet. I refuse to be part of that. Elena felt a pang of frustration. But Earth wasn't just the cradle. She countered. It was our home, our beginning. And it still has the power to help us rise again. We have the giants, the ancient technology, they can help us rebuild. But we can't do it alone. We need to come together. Dr. Drennan's eyes narrowed. I see the desperation in you, Captain. But unity isn't that simple. You want us to trust the same forces that nearly destroyed us once before? You want us to follow the very hands that wielded those weapons? Elena looked at the distant red landscape of Mars, the gravity of the situation sinking deeper into her bones. The giants are not weapons of destruction anymore. They are protectors, and they have made it clear that they will only help if humanity unites. We need to decide, will we continue to drift apart and fall into conflict, or will we rebuild together? After a tense silence, Dr. Drennan stood. I'll take your message back to the council, but don't expect everyone to follow. It was a hard truth, but Elena knew it was the reality they faced. Earth's ancient power wasn't just about technology, it was about hope, belief, and trust. And without that, they would be no better than the fractured colonies that had failed before them. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the giants continued to guide humanity's rebuilding efforts. They helped with the restoration of critical infrastructure, awakening dormant cities and ecosystems that had long since crumbled. It was clear that the giants had been designed not only to protect Earth from external threats but also to nurture it, to preserve its ecosystems and ensure that life could flourish once more. However, the giants had not been entirely dormant in humanity's absence. They had observed. They had seen the wars and the divisions that had torn humanity apart, and they had learned that humanity's greatest strength, and its greatest flaw, was its capacity for self-determination. You cannot depend on us alone, Tlar said one day, its massive form towering above the makeshift council meeting that Elena had set up with representatives from Earth and the scattered colonies. Your unity is your strength. It always has been. The Earth itself cannot repair the fracture between you. Only you can do that. Elena stood before the gathered leaders, feeling the weight of history in her chest. We've learned the hard way that separation leads only to destruction, she said, addressing the council. The giants offer us a chance to rebuild, but it's up to us to make sure we never lose our way again. We've been given a second chance. Let's not squander it. The tension in the room was palpable. Colonists, military leaders, and technocrats eyed each other warily. But as the days passed, small sparks of cooperation began to emerge. The first true steps toward unification began to take place. It wasn't easy. Trust couldn't be rebuilt overnight. Some colonies continued to resist, but with each passing day, the giants helped to remind them of the promise that lay in the future. They weren't just machines, they were the embodiment of a world that had endured despite the mistakes of its past. They were a living testament to the resilience of Terra. And, slowly but surely, the fractured colonies began to reconnect. Messages were sent across the stars, inviting those who had once been adversaries to join in the efforts to rebuild. It was a slow process, but hope had been reignited in the hearts of those who had lost it. Months later, Elena stood once more before Tlar, gazing out at the vast horizon of Earth, where the giants now walked alongside humanity. The atmosphere was clearing. The forests were beginning to grow once more. The oceans, once polluted and dying, were slowly returning to life. You have begun to understand, Tlar said, its voice filled with an ancient wisdom. You have chosen to walk the path of unity, of survival. Your people are no longer fragmented. They are becoming whole again. Elena smiled. Though the journey was far from over, there is still much to be done, she said, but for the first time in a long time, I believe we'll make it. The giants were silent for a moment, their great forms moving with grace and purpose in the distance. You are not alone, human, Tlar said. We are with you, as we always have been. And with that, the giants, Terra's ancient protectors, took their place alongside humanity once more. The sleeping giants had awoken, but it was humanity that had finally risen. Together, they would walk into the future, united, stronger than ever before. The stars were within reach. And this time, humanity would not falter. Colony's Destruction Awakens Terra's Sleeping Giants, Part 4. The resurgence of Terra was a slow but steady process. In the months following the tentative unification of the scattered colonies, Earth had begun to regain its former glory, not as a dominant power, but as the spiritual and technological center of the human race. The giants, both protectors and guides, worked tirelessly to restore the planet's ecosystems, revitalizing lands long barren and bringing back species that had vanished centuries ago. Their influence spread, restoring the balance between nature and technology, giving humanity a second chance at life. But while Earth's surface bloomed once again, the true test of humanity's renewal lay in the stars. Captain Elena Vasquez had become the de facto voice of Earth's reemergence, after weeks of sending out messages and diplomatic overtures to the outer colonies. She finally had the opportunity to address a crucial summit on Luna, Earth's once dominant satellite, now used as a neutral ground for high-stakes negotiations. The room was filled with representatives from every corner of human civilization: the mining colonies of Mars, the agricultural outposts on Venus, the trade hubs scattered across the asteroid belt. There was still a palpable distrust, but also a growing sense of possibility. The collapse of Titan and the awakening of the giants had fundamentally altered the equation. The colonies had seen what was possible when humanity united with the planet's ancient guardians. Elena stood before the gathered leaders, her voice carrying the weight of the planet's rebirth. We've seen the power of what happens when humanity stands together, and we've also seen the cost of division. But Earth is no longer just our home, it is a promise. A promise to never again let the mistakes of the past dictate our future. She paused, letting her words sink in. The room was silent, all eyes on her. I know that many of you doubt our ability to rebuild, or question if we can ever truly recover from the wounds we inflicted upon our world. But the giants, the ancient protectors of Earth, have returned to guide us, and they ask the same thing of us that we must ask of ourselves. Can we come together? Can we unite? Not just as disparate colonies, but as one people, one future? There was a long pause before the representative from Mars stood, his face tight with skepticism. You speak of unity, Captain Vasquez, but you've failed to answer the hardest question. What happens when we disagree? What happens when our interests clash? What happens when your so-called giants demand something we cannot give? Elena's gaze sharpened. She had anticipated this moment, but it didn't make it any easier. The giants ask for nothing in return, she said evenly. They are not conquerors. They are protectors. Their only request is that we build something better, not just for ourselves, but for our children and the worlds yet to be explored. The power to shape our future lies with us, not with them. They are simply here to ensure we have the strength to do it. The room remained silent. The tension was palpable, but the words had struck a chord. Elena knew that the colony leaders were at a crossroads, an opportunity to truly rebuild or an endless cycle of distrust and division. The representative from the belt, a sharp-minded technocrat named Farah, leaned forward. Captain Vasquez, she said, her voice cool but thoughtful. You talk about unity, but unity under whose leadership? If we unite, who leads? Earth? The giants? A council of all the colonies? This question hung in the air like a loaded weapon, and Elena knew this would be the true challenge. The age-old question of leadership, of who gets to shape the future of humanity, could undo everything they had worked toward. Elena took a deep breath. The giants don't seek to lead, they simply seek to guide. As for Earth, we do not ask for dominion over the colonies, we ask for collaboration. A council, not ruled by one, but by many. We share our knowledge, and we combine our resources. If we are to take on the vastness of the universe, we must do it together. The Earth will be the heart, but it will not be the hand that controls. The council will decide our path forward, humanity's path forward. The room was still, and then, finally, the representative from Venus, a weathered woman named Selene, stood. I've watched my world wither for decades, she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. I've seen the cost of being disconnected from Earth, but I've also seen the potential of what we can achieve when we unite. I stand with Earth. I stand with the giants. Her words rippled through the room, and slowly, others began to speak. The representative from Mars nodded solemnly, his expression unreadable but his words pointed. I'll agree to a trial period, but only if every colony is given an equal voice in the council. One by one, the leaders began to speak in favor of the idea. The Giants' return had sparked something deep within humanity, something that reached beyond fear and distrust. Perhaps, just perhaps, they could begin again. Back on Earth, the Giants continued to work with the humans, assisting in the development of new technologies, sharing ancient wisdom that had been forgotten for millennia. But more than that, the Giants were teaching humanity a critical lesson. The true power lay not in their machinery or their advanced weapons, but in the knowledge of balance. Terra had survived by understanding the importance of harmony between nature and technology, between the old ways and the new. As Earth and the colonies began to formalize the terms of their unity, the Giants took a back seat, offering their wisdom but never demanding control. They were the silent witnesses, the guardians of humanity's potential. But it was up to humanity to shape its own destiny. Months later, a new era dawned. The first joint mission was launched, a mission to explore a nearby star system. Humanity, united, had set their sights beyond their solar system. No longer just Earth's children, but citizens of the stars. The colonies had agreed to work as one, and the council began to take shape, with representatives from each world deciding together how best to utilize the Giants' vast knowledge and the resources of the united colonies. Elena stood at the launch site, watching the first ships depart, carrying the hopes of humanity with them. The Giants watched from the distance, their massive forms silent but ever-present, guardians and witnesses to the rise of humanity's second chance. "We're ready," Elena whispered to herself. And as the ships ascended into the vast unknown, Earth's sleeping giants stood watch, knowing that humanity had finally found its place in the stars. The Giants had awoken, humanity had returned, and together, they would face the future, united, stronger than ever, and with the universe waiting at their feet. The story of Earth was far from over. Colony's Destruction Awakens Terra's Sleeping Giants, Part 5. The journey beyond the stars had begun, but Earth's rebirth was just one chapter in a long saga. As the first interstellar missions launched from Earth and its colonies, the future held promises both thrilling and uncertain. Humanity's united front was tested in the face of unknown dangers. The path forward was fraught with challenges, but the Giants' presence, though silent, remained a constant reminder that humanity had something the universe had never seen before: the resilience to unite and rise again. The first colony ship to venture beyond the solar system was named Vanguard, and its mission was clear: explore the nearby star systems and establish a foothold for humanity on new worlds. But there were whispers of other missions being prepared in secret, missions not just for exploration, but for defense. The Giants, though still revered as protectors of Earth, had provided humanity with an arsenal of powerful technologies, things no one could have imagined before their awakening. Captain Elena Vasquez was part of the new council formed to guide humanity's exploration and defense strategies. Her role was no longer just to command, but to be a voice of unity, a bridge between Earth and the stars. The Giants had given humanity a second chance, but now they were teaching the most difficult lesson of all: the responsibility that came with power. The Giants, in their immense wisdom, had warned of forces beyond the known galaxy, ancient enemies of Earth that might one day seek to challenge humanity's renewed strength. The Giants spoke cryptically of the others, a mysterious, seemingly ancient race that had crossed paths with Earth's progenitors long ago. The Giants had battled these entities before, but they had never fully understood their motives. Now, humanity was forced to prepare for something far greater than they had ever anticipated. Captain Vasquez stood at the helm of the Vanguard as it slipped through the boundaries of the solar system, leaving behind the cradle of humanity. The ship's sensors hummed with activity, scanning the stars for signs of life, 4 planets to colonize. Yet, beneath the calm surface of their mission, Elena knew the truth: the universe was far more dangerous than they realized. "This is Captain Vasquez," she spoke into the comms, her voice steady but filled with a tension she couldn't quite shake. "We are officially leaving the solar system, beginning our journey into uncharted space. Keep your eyes on the scanners. Stay sharp." Her crew responded with muted affirmations, their faces focused, but the unease in the air was palpable. They were pioneers, venturing into the unknown, yet none of them truly understood the scope of what lay ahead, and they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The first few weeks of the mission were uneventful, the ship traveling farther into the void with each passing day. The stars ahead gleamed with the promise of discovery, but the silence of space was unnerving. Then, one day, just as the Vanguard passed the outer edge of the Oort cloud, an alarm pierced the quiet of the ship. "Captain, we're picking up strange signals," Lieutenant Hargrave, the ship's communications officer, called out. "It's coming from the direction of Alpha Centauri." Elena's brow furrowed. Alpha Centauri, one of the closest star systems to Earth. The idea of receiving a signal from that far-off system was concerning. They had been scanning the space for months, but hadn't received any indication of intelligent life. On screen, Elena ordered. The main monitor flickered to life, displaying a series of repeating signals, seemingly random. But there was a pattern. It was almost like a form of communication. But from whom? Or what? Could it be a distress signal? Hargrave asked, clearly puzzled. "Not sure," Elena replied, "but we're going to find out." She turned to the ship's navigator, Commander Barlow. "Prepare for a course change. We're heading toward Alpha Centauri." As the ship changed direction, the crew members worked in tandem, their actions seamless. Though the tension aboard the Vanguard had increased, something about the signal felt off, like a premonition that couldn't be ignored. The farther they traveled, the closer they came to answering a question that had been lingering in the back of their minds since the giants had awoken. What other powers were out there, and why had they remained silent for so long? When the Vanguard arrived at Alpha Centauri, the sight that greeted them was unlike anything they could have imagined. A massive, ancient structure hovered around one of the system's planets, a monolithic ringed structure that seemed to pulse with energy. The signal had been coming from this mysterious object. "It's not natural," Commander Barlow whispered in awe, staring at the structure. Elena's heart raced as she stared at the object. The first instinct was to approach with caution, but there was no denying the pull of discovery. The galaxy was vast, and humanity was still learning its place within it. But was this a sign of something new, something that could be an ally? Or was it a harbinger of something far darker? "We need to get closer," Elena decided, her voice filled with resolve. "Prepare the landing teams, we're going in." As they moved closer, the ship's systems began to falter, as though the structure was interfering with their technology. Lights flickered, and the hum of the engines seemed to falter. Elena's unease grew, but her crew was undeterred. They had come this far, and they would not turn back. Suddenly, the communication systems buzzed to life, a low, guttural voice emanating from the ship's speakers. "Humanity," the voice said, its tone cold and distant. "You have awakened the ancient guardians, but do you know what you have truly awakened?" The voice reverberated through the ship, making the hairs on the back of Elena's neck stand up. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. "Who are you?" Elena demanded, her voice steady despite the unease bubbling inside her. "We are the others. We were the ones who walked this galaxy long before your ancestors knew of the stars. You are but children in a universe of giants." The message sent a chill down Elena's spine. The others were real, and they knew who the giants were, and it seemed clear that they had an interest in humanity's re-emergence. The ship's sensors began to go haywire, the connection to the structure becoming stronger, the signals intensifying. Something was about to happen. "Brace for impact," Barlow shouted. But before anyone could react, the entire ship was engulfed in a powerful pulse of energy. The Vanguard was thrown backward, spinning uncontrollably through space. Elena gripped the edge of her seat as alarms blared and the ship shook violently. "Report," she shouted, trying to make sense of the chaos. "We've lost contact with the comms," Hargrave yelled. "We're locked into the gravity well of that structure. Captain, it's pulling us in." Elena's mind raced as she realized the situation was far worse than they had anticipated. They had encountered something far beyond their understanding, something ancient, something deadly. "We're not alone," Elena whispered under her breath, as the Vanguard was drawn toward the alien structure, its massive size now looming larger than ever. The journey into the unknown had just become far more perilous than anyone had imagined. Humanity had awakened the giants, but now it seemed they had attracted the attention of something far more dangerous, the others. The question now was, could humanity survive this new, ancient threat? And if the giants were to aid them, would they be strong enough to confront the true dangers lurking beyond the stars? The answers to these questions were still out there, waiting. Colony's Destruction Awakens Terra Sleeping Giants, Part 6. The Vanguard was caught in the grip of an unseen force. The ship's hull groaned under the strain, and every sensor aboard the vessel screamed in warning as it was drawn inexorably toward the colossal structure. Elena Vasquez stood at the helm, her hands gripping the controls, her heart pounding in her chest. The power of the structure was overwhelming, something far beyond human technology, and yet, humanity had provoked it by venturing too close. "We're losing control," Lieutenant Hargrave shouted, his voice tense with panic. "The engines are malfunctioning. We're not going to make it out of this." Elena's mind raced as she watched the massive ring structure in front of them, its surface shimmering with an eerie glow. The others, the mysterious ancient race, had already spoken, their cold and distant voice warning them of the dangers they faced. But it was clear now that they had only just begun to comprehend the extent of the threat. And worse, they had no idea what they had awakened by coming here. "Hold on, everyone," Elena called out, forcing calm into her voice. "We need to stabilize the ship. Work the thrusters. Get us out of this pull." The crew scrambled, but the damage was clear. The Vanguard was caught in the gravity well of the massive alien construct, its thrusters unable to counteract the immense force pulling them toward it. For the first time, Elena felt helpless in a way she never had before. The universe was vast, and humanity's place within it had just become perilously uncertain. "We're not going to get out of this on our own, Captain," Barlow said, his voice low but resigned. "We need help, and fast." Back on Earth, the giants were watching. From their towering forms scattered across the planet, the ancient protectors sensed the disturbance in the far reaches of space. They had felt the shockwave as the Vanguard was drawn toward the alien structure. The giants had never interfered in humanity's exploration of the stars, but now, they understood that their time had come again. The others, the ancient force that had spoken to Elena and her crew, were not merely a threat to Earth's colonies. They were a threat to humanity's very survival, and the giants knew they could not allow that to happen. Tlar, the leader of the giants, stood in a place of deep silence, its colossal form stirred, the ancient technology embedded in its body humming with power. It reached out, not just with its physical presence, but with its mind. It was a call to arms, a summons to all the giants scattered across Earth. "We will not allow the darkness to reclaim our world," Tlar said, its voice resonating across the land, stirring the very atmosphere. "We are the guardians of Terra, and we will protect our children." On the Vanguard, Elena's grip on the controls was slipping as the ship was pulled ever closer to the alien structure. The ship's systems were failing, and there was nothing left to do but brace for the inevitable. And then, just as it seemed the ship would be lost, a deep, rumbling pulse of energy surged outward from Earth, an answering wave to the unknown force that had captured the Vanguard. For a brief moment, the pull on the ship eased, and Elena felt a shiver of hope. "What was that?" she whispered. "It came from Earth," Hargrave said, his eyes wide with disbelief. It's like Earth is reaching out to us." The strange energy pulse continued, swirling around the ship as though guiding it. The giant protectors of Earth were using their ancient powers to intervene, but not in the way Elena had expected. The wave of energy wasn't a weapon, but a lifeline. It was as if the giants were forming a bond with the ship, helping it resist the pull of the alien structure. "Stay with me, people," Elena shouted as the Vanguard shifted, its trajectory altered by the sudden burst of energy. "We're not out of this yet, but we've got a chance. Keep working the controls." The crew worked feverishly, the ship's systems flickering back to life as the force from Earth fought the pull of the alien force. The Vanguard lurched, its engines sputtering back to life, and with a final push, the ship broke free from the gravitational grip of the ancient structure. "We're free," Barlow shouted, a note of triumph in his voice. But Elena wasn't ready to celebrate just yet. The structure was still looming, its presence a silent threat. She had no idea what it was or what the others intended, and the reality of their situation was becoming clearer with every passing second. They were not alone in this universe. As the Vanguard limped back to a safe orbit, Elena looked at the viewscreen, her gaze fixed on the mysterious structure. It was still there, its alien surface gleaming in the dark of space, an enigma that would not be easily forgotten. "Captain," Hargrave said, voice quiet, "what now?" Elena took a deep breath, her mind racing. They had barely escaped, and yet they had no answers. Only more questions. The others, the ancient race who had communicated with them, had made their presence known, and they were not alone. The giants' intervention had saved them this time, but Elena knew that the battle was far from over. They had only just scratched the surface of the forces in the universe that were watching them. "We return to Earth," Elena said, her voice steady despite the weight of the unknown pressing down on her. "We report everything. We prepare. The giants have given us a warning, and we have to take it seriously. This is just the beginning." As the vanguard turned back toward Earth, the alien structure remained in the distance, its presence looming like a dark shadow over the path ahead. Humanity's rebirth had only just begun, but now, more than ever, they had to confront the terrifying reality of the universe they had entered. And the giants, Terra's ancient protectors, would stand by their side. But would they be enough? On Earth, the giants continued to watch the stars. Their ancient minds understood what had just transpired. The others had sent a message, not just to the vanguard, but to humanity itself. "They will not rest," Tlar said, its voice somber. "They have seen us, and now they will test us." The silence stretched out, and the giants, in their wisdom, knew the truth. The battle for humanity's future had just begun. The sleeping giants had awoken. But the true test of Terra's resilience was still ahead.